the SJM universe, the Maasverse, whatever you want to call it. Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. If you're on Book Talk, Bookstagram, Booktube, you know about the Maasverse. Everyone talks about it, everyone has an opinion on what the correct way of reading it is. Let me tell you, there's no right way or wrong way of doing it, but here's my preference on how I read them and how I think you should read them. So yeah, Sarah J. Maas has released 3 series as of now. Those are ACOTAR, Crescent City, and Throne of Glass. They all exist in their own universe, their own worlds. However, some of them cross over a little bit. Think of it like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can watch the Spider-Man movies on their own, you can watch the Iron Man movies on their own, but like they exist in the same world, the same universe. So this is kind of like that. Let me walk you through how I read these series. So I first started with ACOTAR. Why? Because it has the easiest world building. The first 3 books were meant to be a trilogy. They're written in first person. We follow a single point of view, which is Feyre's, our female main character. This series is for my romantasy girlies. It has a lot of romance, a lot of action. We follow Feyre, a human. Feyre's family lost everything. So now they rely on Feyre, a 19-year-old. Feyre does all the hunting and gathering for the household. She has 2 sisters, Nesta and Elaine, and her father. So one day when Feyre is hunting for her family, she comes across a wolf and she kills the wolf and obviously takes it back home for dinner. But as they're prepping the wolf, someone appears at her house and it's a beast. He's really angry, demanding justice for his friend because apparently the wolf Feyre killed was actually a fae in disguise. In this world, the fae and the humans do not interact with each other. They exist in different parts of the world. But to kill a fae is like a horrible offense. So Feyre is ready to like pay with her life. But the beast tells her that that's not necessary. He's gonna leave her family alone, but she has to come with him to the Feylands, the immortal side of the continent. Humans don't really go there. The Fae exist on their own, so Feyre doesn't know what to expect. But she goes with him. Yeah. A lot of action, a lot of romance. So that's the storyline for the first 3 books, which are A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. Like I said, that was meant to be a trilogy. However, Sarah decided to continue with the series, so she came up with A Court of Frost and Starlight and A Court of Silver Flames. You can think of it as like a spin-off. You're still in the same world with the same characters, but the writing style changes in these books. They become third person and we are following different points of view now, which is actually the writing style Sarah normally goes for. That's how Throne of Glass is written and how Crescent City is written. So that's also why it's important to start with this series so you can get accustomed to Sarah's writing style. A Court of Frost and Starlight is like a holiday novella, kind of. After all the craziness in the original trilogy, you kind of need a little break, and this book gives you that. It's all very happy, very jolly. It is important. I've seen a lot of people saying that this book is skippable. It's not. It's a transition book. You actually need it. Like, there's stuff that happens in this book that's important for A Court of Silver Flames. So yeah, this series is not complete. However, there's only 5 books out right now. You're gonna read the whole of ACOTAR, and you could either go into Throne of Glass or Crescent City, but I personally recommend you go into Throne of Glass, and I'll explain why later. Throne of Glass is actually Sarah's first series. She released the first book when she was 16. A lot of people complain about the writing style. For me personally, I do not pay that much attention to writing style unless it's like so good or like so bad that it takes me away from the story. I honestly thought it was a well thought out story. I actually liked the writing style, so to each their own. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people complaining about that, so I thought I should mention it. Oh my, what is going on? So Throne of Glass is a completed series. There's 8 books in this series. Like I said, it's written in third person. We follow multiple POVs, and this series is more fantasy than romance. There is romance present in the book, but there's like a larger focus on the found family trope. I actually think it was executed perfectly in this series. Also, Throne of Glass is the only series in this multiverse that is YA. Both ACOTAR and Crescent City are NA, new adult. So yeah, keep that in mind. A lot of people debate on when you should read the prequel book, The Assassin's Blade. The Assassin's Blade focuses on our female main character, Selena. She's an assassin, and this is like her whole backstory. This book contains 5 novellas, and you just follow Selena. She's doing her assassin thing, and all these events lead up to where Throne of Glass actually starts. So a lot of people debate on when you should read this book, if you should read it first, second, third, fourth, whatever. I read it first, and I really enjoyed reading it first. I feel like I connected a lot with the female main character before the series even started, and I don't know, it just made sense for me. It was fun knowing things about the female main character that the other characters did not know in the first few books. But it doesn't really matter when you read it. You can start straight up with Throne of Glass. But there are things mentioned in the first few books that go back to the female main character's backstory, and I feel like I would have been confused if I hadn't read it first. But some people like that. They don't like knowing everything. They like discovering it later on. So it doesn't really matter when you read this book, if you read it first, second, third. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you read it before the 4th book, Queen of Shadows, because all the characters from The Assassin's Blade come into play in that book, and if you have not read it by that time, you're gonna be extremely confused. My recommendation, read it first. There's also some debate on how you can read Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. These 2 books take place at the same time, but they follow different characters in different parts of the world. So a lot of people like doing what is called the tandem read, where you read a couple of chapters from Empire of Storms and a couple of chapters of Tower of Dawn, and like you kind of alternate between the 2. Fans have created this way of reading it because it's more immersive. You're in different parts of the world, you're following different characters, everything is happening at the same time. There's some references from Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn and vice versa. So yeah, I did the tandem read, and I recommend doing the tandem read. It was really fun, but keep in mind these 2 books are like thick, so it's gonna take some time, but it's an experience, you know. And yeah, I'm gonna put it up here, the tandem read, how you're supposed to do it. I'll also link it down below. And yeah, you're gonna finish Throne of Glass with Kingdom of Ash. You're gonna cry. It's the thickest book in the series. A lot happens. It's a great conclusion to the whole series. There's a lot of the found family trope. There's a lot happens. Some people like reading Throne of Glass first before ACOTAR, but I wouldn't recommend doing that, especially if you're like a romance reader or a romantasy reader, because like I said, it's more fantasy. The world building is a little heavier than ACOTAR. Also, it's in third person. You're following multiple people's points of view, so I still recommend reading ACOTAR first. And there's also a little Easter egg at the end of Kingdom of Ash, and it hits different if you have read ACOTAR. Yeah. And finally, you're gonna move on to Crescent City. That's where I am right now, halfway through the first book. and I'm really enjoying it. The thing with this series is you must have read ACOTAR before going into Crescent City, because there's spoilers for ACOTAR in Crescent City, and it also has the most complex world building out of the three. There's a lot of creatures and stuff, a lot of species you have to deal with. In ACOTAR is mostly humans and Fae. In Throne of Glass there's Fae, there's a little bit more creatures, not too hard to keep up with, but in Crescent City there's a lot. The social hierarchy, the politics, everything is more complex, so that's why I recommend going into Crescent City after Throne of Glass. By now you're used to Sarah's writing style. The first 100-ish pages in Crescent City are hard to keep up with. Do not get discouraged if you start this series and feel like you don't understand anything. You're not supposed to. Just trust the process. Keep reading. It'll all make sense later on. I'm at the point right now where things are starting to make sense. But yeah, the first 100-ish, 200-ish pages, it's fine if you don't remember who's who, where they're from, where's what happened. It doesn't matter. Just keep reading. Also, Crescent City is different in the sense that it's an urban fantasy. There's phones, there's guns. Think of it as like a real world, just with fantasy elements in it. It's the most different out of the three series. That's why I personally recommend reading it last. I also went into this one blind, so I'm not gonna give you a summary because I kind of liked it that way. So yeah, that's everything you need to know about the Maasverse, whatever you want to call it. I know it was a lot of yapping, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of a summary. So basically, how I recommend you approach this multiverse is you're gonna read ACOTAR first. There's 5 books: A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames. It's an incomplete series. We don't know when the next book is going to be released, hopefully soon. It all takes place in the same world with the same characters. However, the first 3 books were meant to be a trilogy, and the last 2 books are kind of like a spin-off. It has the easiest world building. The first 3 books are in first person and we follow just one point of view, which is Feyre's, and it's new adult. Then you're gonna go into Throne of Glass, which is 8 books. There's The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash. It's a completed series. It's YA. It's Sarah's first series. She wrote the first book when she was 16, which is impressive. I don't know what I was doing when I was 16. Definitely not creating an amazing universe like that. It's third person. We have multiple POVs. It's more fantasy than romance, and there's a large focus on the found family aspect of it all. And I recommend you read The Assassin's Blade first, which is the prequel book. It has 5 novellas. It's our female main character's entire backstory. And I also recommend doing the tandem read. I'll post it up here again, and it's linked down below. Did I even tell you what Throne of Glass is about? Wow. So Throne of Glass starts, the first book, not the novellas, starts with an assassin. Her name is Selena. She starts off in Endovir. She's a slave there, and if you read The Assassin's Blade first, you know why she's there. In this world, there's a glass castle. That's where the king lives, and the king is holding a competition in the glass castle. Think of it as like the Hunger Games trials, and the winner of those trials will become the king's champion. They will be hired to do the king's bidding, and yeah. So Selena is a slave, and Prince Dorian, who is the king's son, comes and visits her, and he makes a deal with her that if she participates in these trials in his name and she becomes the king's assassin, the winner, he will ensure her freedom. So Selena accepts and she goes with Dorian to the glass castle, and everything takes off from there. And finally, the last series is Crescent City. There's 3 books out right now. This is her newest series. The last one came out this year in February, if I'm not mistaken. There's 3 books out right now. It's not complete. There's gonna be more. It has the hardest world building. If you don't understand, it's fine. Keep going, you'll understand later. It's also the most different world in this multiverse because it's an urban fantasy, so it takes place in like our world, just with mythical creatures in it. So yeah, there's phones, there's cars, there's guns, everything. And this series is not a standalone. You actually need to have read ACOTAR first. I've actually heard people saying you need to read Throne of Glass before you read the 3rd book too. But if you follow my recommendation, you're already on the road to success because you've already read ACOTAR, you've already read Throne of Glass, so you're fine. So that's everything you need to know about the SJM universe. I hope this clarified all your doubts because I know there's so many ways you can read these books. Like some people read ACOTAR, then Crescent City right after. Some people start with Throne of Glass and then go into ACOTAR. Like, it depends on what you like, but this is how I did it. And yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts are, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.